And we're live! Hi folks. Bit of housekeeping before we begin tonight. I have posted the interview, I hate using that term actually, my chat with Vera Wild from Council of Geeks. Awesome person, had an awesome chat with her, and from the feedback I've seen from the comments on the video, people seem to have enjoyed it. Hopefully do more discussion stuff like that with various trans individuals. But tonight I have a trans ally with me, and somebody who's very well known on YouTube. I have Dr. Kristi Winters with me. Yes, the brains behind the Kev and Kristi Happy Hour. Right.
No lies detected. No, kidding.
How are you, Kristi?
Yes, I'm good, and thank you so much for giving me the title of ally. I definitely work to be an ally, and I think that that's the point: is to work to be an ally for trans individuals and trans rights and everyone else. So yeah, thank you. I feel very complimented by that.
Now, come on, admit it. Admit that you're only in Germany to resurrect the Frankfurt School to push cultural Marxism.
Yes, I am for the postmodern, Marxist, redevelopment of the Frankfurt School. I'm here as an operative from the CEO of Antifa, on a mission, living a very luxurious lifestyle on all the Soros bucks.
Yeah. Yes, I've had a good laugh about Marjorie Taylor Greene recently.
Oh.
As soon as I heard the space stations, I suddenly thought of the Mel Brooks sketch from History of the World Part 1, Jews in Space. Yeah.
Right. Yes. That was enjoyable. She's definitely not. But at least to get sidestepped to something more pleasant.
Well, the thing is, they don't change the fucking... The default running is always the Rothschilds. And it's like, the Rothschilds are irrelevant now.
I know. It's like they can't update. Their conspiracies are locked in time.
Yeah.
Like a time capsule of bigotry.
It's and they all think we're in. If it's not the Rothschilds, then we're all in the pay of George Soros. I wish
Yes.
we were. Yeah.
Still waiting for my super soldier bucks. There's all kinds of bucks I'm waiting for here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's easier, of course, to, the whole point of that sort of far-right talk is, what Kevin points out quite frequently, which is well known about fascism, is to make your enemy both incredibly strong and incredibly weak and evil, at the same time.
Well, yeah, it's. I've always tried to explain to people about the Nazis and their view of Jews. On one hand, they thought we were subhuman. On the other hand, we controlled everything. And it's like,
yeah.
Well, if we're subhuman, how the fuck can we control everything?
Mm-hmm.
It's got fucking contradiction.
You both have to it's a cognitive dissonance, because you want people to fear people and drive them to basically kill them. But you can't make them so scary that people won't do it. So it's this weird imaginary world that they've developed for themselves to justify irrational hatred that only destroys.
So, let's talk Biden first of all, because I'm gonna admit, obviously I was a Bert Sanders supporter. I mean, I'm a red socialist, and I haven't always been. I did flirt with libertarianism for a little bit. We'll get onto that later. But and so I was disappointed that Sanders didn't, become the nominee. But I remember actually we had a Twitter exchange about this. You've sort of, I think you said to me that America's not ready for Sanders.
Well, there's two things on that. First is Bernie Sanders really messed up when he did not actively reach beyond his sort of core white base into the very important core demographic of black voters in the U.S. He had 4 years between when he lost the primary and his next time up. He had plenty of money. He could have been traveling. He could have been going and listening to people, making connections in South Carolina, in Mississippi, in some of these places, way ahead of everybody else. But he didn't. And at the end of the day, that's what got him. It was Jim Clyburn knowing Biden, and of course his work with Obama and Biden's deep history with the black community. And the thing is that I think we tend to think about the Democratic primary as being mostly like Ohio, New Hampshire, and then I guess South Carolina is the one after that. But it's traditionally been a pretty white primary, and if you win the first two contests, the other ones become important, but there's a lot of emphasis placed on that early momentum. And so I think that was broadening his, not his message. I don't know that he's going to run again. But I think that if you want to talk about the white progressive bubble, and here I'm not talking about hashtag not all white progressives, but the ones who are saying, oh, well, the reason why Bernie Sanders didn't win in Mississippi is because black people don't have good education and therefore they don't understand how capitalism.
Oh Christ, that's really patronizing.
Exactly. And this is why this turned more black folk off, and so having, yes, it's great when you have a mixture of people of color in your 18 to 20.
And can I just point out that saying to black people you don't know what's good for you is actually fucking racist.
Yeah, exactly. This is there's a lot of black left Democrats who side-eye Ryan Knight and other white progressives who then don't seem to understand the importance of intersectionality. So it's not so much I get the younger generation is more economically left, yeah, but it's the church ladies, it's the people who are organizing Souls to the Polls, who are retired, those people who have gray in their hair, who remember segregation because they were kids. Those are the people who are going to change elections, as they have in Georgia and in the Democratic primary. So I think that's one part of it. The other part of it is that although Bernie Sanders is quite popular with the far left in America, and even with some of his policies on the, let's call it the slightly less far left and the center left and maybe even conservative Democrats, that's 30% of America. And the rest of America has grown up on anti-communism. All of the Republicans, even people who left the Republican Party for Trump and are now independents, are probably old enough to remember Ronald Reagan and hero worshiping, in terms of the white people here. And so all of those kinds of policies, they're still trying to get a $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, it's funny you say about the $15 wage. There is a bit of a gripe I have with the Biden campaign and Florida. Florida on the ballot initiative did vote for a $15 minimum wage, right? Yet, that was actually part of Biden's platform, but it wasn't shouted loud enough in Florida. And the other thing I will say to you is this: we were we were all told it had to be Biden because Florida man will just call Sanders a commie. Well, Florida man is calling Biden a commie.
Yeah, I don't think that Bernie would have won Florida either. I think what happened in Florida would have happened to Bernie too, because the problem wasn't so much white Florida man as it was Cuban Americans.
Sure.
That was a big segment, and that went very hard for Trump because they did a lot of work there. And I saw that right now the former chair of the DNC, Tom Perez, and somebody else, maybe it's Media Matters, and another group have formed a coalition to basically work against disinformation in Spanish media markets. All the sort of anti-Castro stuff. So I think the Democrats have recognized that that is an area that they need to contest more and not just kind of rely on the southern part of Florida to balance out the northern part, which is basically Alabama, for all intents and purposes in Florida. And Florida is always, it's been for a long time the football that Lucy pulls away from Charlie Brown for Democrats. So, there was, I don't think Biden was counting on Florida. That was not one of the places that he rested the election. He was looking more at Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and I think Michigan. There were a lot of other top tier states that he felt were much more gettable than Florida.
Having said all that, I to me, please don't take offense, but Biden wouldn't get in the Labour Party. Okay, he would be.
Based on what?
Well, well, actually, funny enough, he wouldn't have gotten the Labour Party if Corbyn was leader. I would say that, but with Starmer, the ironic thing is Biden's actually more left wing than Starmer now. But that's a plague on Starmer, not a plague on Joe Biden. Funny enough.
Yeah, I guess it depends on which Labour we're talking about, because I can see him very much at ease with the new Labour Party. Maybe not the old, before the Clause 4 Labour Party.
But you see, that's the Labour Party I love, the old one.
The one from the last century, yeah.
Well, you say that. Oh no. That's fighting talk, right?
The unions. I'm talking about when the unions are in the party.
Well, yeah, but okay. Corbyn came within a whisker of becoming Prime Minister.
When?
2017.
What were the results then?
Well,
what were the results on that year?
Okay. Let me explain how it works. Okay. Basic.
I know. I just have to remind myself because I was there because I study elections. You remember?
All right.
I don't remember it being close.
Sorry, I don't want to patronise you, but it's basically the statistics on a spread across various constituencies. It was about 2,000 votes.
Well, that's not. But that's not. Well, okay. So let me see. Let me see. Labour won just 262 seats, not nearly enough to secure the majority. Exceeded expectations. Yeah. Well, Clinton got more votes than the popular vote, but Trump got 20,000 in the places that counted. End of the day.
Yeah, but you do know about.
But after that, he didn't go up. After that, that was his high water mark.
No,
right?
Okay. So can I explain a few things, right? Because I do know something of what has happened. I don't know if you heard, but there were some leaks out of Labour HQ last spring, which revealed there was a parallel Labour election campaign being run from HQ, and this is hard to believe, by the Blairite faction, the new Labour faction, right? And they were funneling money to those money and resources to those MPs which agreed with their ideological stance, and which meant the money and resources wasn't going into the marginals Labour could have won.
Yeah, why didn't he visit those marginals more often? I remember them being a critique that he spent a lot of time in places that he was going to win, and these marginals were places that he didn't. No. You don't understand what I'm saying. I don't know if you got what I said. Basically, the Blairite faction, who were always trying to undermine Jeremy Corbyn, were funneling money and resources into constituencies which were safe Labour seats, but were represented by Blairite ideologues, right? So essentially, the money and resources wasn't being funneled into constituencies which were marginal. So in other words, the Blairite faction were undermining Jeremy Corbyn when it came to an actual general election campaign. All right. Well, he still had other elections after that to build on. But
yeah,
he
that's
lost
true.
At all of those.
Okay.
So
if that election campaign had been a week longer, he would have won. Okay, that was the momentum going on. Partly I think it was, and I will admit, partly it was because Theresa May was just atrocious at campaigning. She really was.
Oh, this is about when the first part of the campaign was dominated by the dementia tax, wasn't it?
Yeah, and her.
I'm remembering back
and her repeat.
That was a terrible messaging. It was just alienating all of her base voters. It was a terrible idea.
And repeatedly saying strong and stable, strong and stable, strong and stable.
Like a robot.
It got so fucking nauseous. Yeah.
We're actually far from the point about Biden not fitting in the Labour Party, and what you're saying is he wouldn't fit in Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party.
Yeah,
so why would that be the case?
If you want to know why Labour lost the 2019 general election, that's very simple. Brexit. Labour got in a mess over Brexit. The party policy was nonsensical. We're going to renegotiate the Brexit deal. Then have a referendum and tell people to vote against it. What? And the person responsible for that is Keir Starmer. he is responsible for that. And
well, a longer term problem for Labour is the fact that they can't win in Scotland.
Yeah, that is also an issue. Anyways, yes, you reminded me Biden. So
so why wouldn't Biden fit in Corbyn's Labour Party?
Economically, too much to the right.
So if you're going to be anywhere, it's like you can be great on every other issue, but if you're economically too far to the right, you can't be a Labour member. Is that the criteria?
Well, under Corbyn, the Labour Party still describes itself as a democratic socialist party.
So considering that he's pro-union, how is, he is protecting unions, he's talking about bringing back unions, he's been a long-time defender of unions, how is he not pro-economic in that way?
Well, he doesn't support support universal health care.
No, that's not true. He wants to expand, and he has already opened up Obamacare again, and he's talked about different ways.
But Obamacare is not universal health care.
No, universal health care is allowing all people to have access to insurance. Like the old standard Medicare for all would replace all insurance with one program, but you can get to universal health care without M for A. Germany has, Britain has.
Yeah, well, I know that he has opened up Obamacare, but my understanding of Obamacare, and I mean, okay, I don't know every little detail. I'm going to admit that. I sound like fucking Sargon now, don't I? My understanding was it did expand health people to be able to get health insurance. However, I kind of feel that the best system still is single payer, like we have.
Well, yeah, but that's also why he supports expanding Medicare for all into like a public opt-in thing farther down the road, because obviously COVID is taking up all their time and attention right now. But he's not against universal health care. He's just like, the NHS, people pay in, but you can also have private insurance. Anyone can get private insurance, whereas in Germany it's economically limited. You have to earn so much before you qualify for private insurance here. So everybody in the lower economic status has like 5 different companies.
My understanding of Germany was, aren't corporations obliged to provide health insurance?
Well, there are I think about 5 big insurance companies, and they provide basically 2 different kinds of plans. One is if you make less than 65,000 euros a year, you have these sort of 5 programs. Each company offers a basic healthcare program. And if you make more than that, then you can subscribe to a kind of a premium healthcare where you get nicer treatment centers that visit after your whatever recuperation or whatever. You get nicer rooms or whatever. But everything is run through the private insurance companies, but they meet with doctors in the government, and the 3 of them sort of estimate out, this is my understanding, what are the heart attacks we had in this region this year? So what do we think we'll have for next year, and what are our anticipated costs? And that way, all of the charges are the same at every doctor's office and hospital, and every insurance company works at every healthcare provider. So it doesn't matter where I go in. If I flash my insurance card, I can get treated and it'll cost the same, and I can pick my doctor and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Biden is for basically getting every single American insurance. He just he doesn't want to eliminate private insurance like the original Medicare for all and replace it, because that would never withstand litigation in the courts.
Fair enough. I mean, look, I will give Biden has surpassed my expectations in some areas.
Yeah, hasn't he? He's been good.
When it comes to LGBTQ matters, yeah, definitely.
It was lovely to see his press secretary up there saying trans rights are human rights with the seal of the office of the presidency in front of her.
And also, what really surprised me is he suspended arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Now, that really was a surprise to me.
Yeah, like I said, he's. I kind of don't see where he's put a foot wrong yet. The
only black spot, and it didn't surprise me, but he's instructed the Department of Justice to still pursue the extradition of Julian Assange.
Oh, I don't really care about Julian Assange.
Well, I don't think Julian Assange should be extradited. So.
I think he should be tried for rape first.
I actually, my understanding was that those allegations have been withdrawn.
No, the case was withdrawn because they couldn't get him.
All right. Okay.
That was my understanding. Not that
well, yeah. I mean, look. Look. Assange is an arsehole, but on a personal level, right? However, I've always said, he did expose a walk, right? And, with the help of Chelsea Manning, of course. And as far as I'm concerned, Chelsea Manning should never have been incarcerated. They should have been given a medal. However, I always felt a bit uneasy about the whole rape allegations in Sweden and him saying, "Oh, I don't want to go to Sweden because it would be easier for the United States to extradite me from Sweden," which is bullshit.
Oh yeah.
We have
I don't have a strong opinion on the espionage stuff. I mean, I know people were pretty hot on that. It's not an issue. Like, that part isn't so much of within my bailiwick. I just really, if he's been accused and he ran away from his charges, I'm side-eyeing him until he addresses them and goes and deals with it. And if he's acquitted, he's acquitted.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll say that. Sorry, I had heard that those charges have been withdrawn, but if they haven't been, he should stand trial in Sweden.
Yeah, I think they said they weren't pursuing it. My recollection is, and of course I'd have to check on Google, but that's my recollection, is that they knew he was in the embassy and he wasn't coming out, and they couldn't pursue it any longer. So.
And of course, now that Biden's in the White House, the Democrats have control of Congress. We're back to the days of, the Democrats are commies. I've noticed that with Fox News.
Oh, well, no, they never stop. They haven't stopped that since the 1950s. Basically, this is a continual refrain of American politics, is the fear of communism, the Red Scare. It's morphed over time, just like white supremacy morphs a little bit from generation to generation. But it's the same as the propaganda movies that you watch in the 1950s.
I don't know if you know this, but a little bit of a sidetrack here, but
yeah.
A lot of people have accused Sam Peckinpah of making films which were recruiting ads for the NRA, which is actually untrue.
Who's that? Sorry, what did he direct?
Sam Peckinpah, The Wild Bunch.
No idea. The Wild Bunch?
Yeah, the greatest Western ever made.
I didn't see it. I'm not a Western fan. My dad would know it. My dad loves Westerns. It's probably why I, as a child, no, I don't want to watch Westerns.
But he co-wrote the script for Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, right.
And the 50s version with Michael Landon in it, which was actually meant to be it was a political analogy against McCarthyism.
Oh, okay. So was The Crucible, right? Arthur Miller's?
Yeah.
It's around the same era?
Yeah, well, I've seen the film with Daniel Day-Lewis, so... And Daniel Day-Lewis, great actor.
Yes,
so, yeah, look, I mean, look...
Yeah, I think Biden's basically, he's getting an A, he's getting like an A so far. I mean, I'm not expecting it to last. Eventually, foreign policy will come up. But on the domestic agenda...
Well, do you say if the foreign policy? I mean, he's issued this memorandum that
He also is trying to close Gitmo again.
Well, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was the Republicans and some conservative Democrats, whose Congress who stopped Obama. They refused to stop the funding for it or whatever else. So
yeah.
But he managed to transfer out like 80% of the people being held there. I think they're down to like 40 states. So. Which is too many, but I'm glad Biden put it back on the front burner of his agenda.
Where was I?
Sorry, I was the one who interjected there.
No, that's right. I was going to say, he's issued this memorandum, pro-LGBTQ memorandum, and it's, that he wants America to be promoting LGBTQ equality. So it sounds to me that will feed into foreign policy.
Oh, well, that's true. I mean, he's also really raised a profile of climate threats to policy and also racial justice.
Yeah.
So he's really taking a very intersectional approach, which is very much needed to counter the sort of dominant, right-wing white dude worldview and experience and start expanding it to all Americans and all people around the world.
Yeah, the dumbest thing I ever heard on climate change came from Ben Shapiro. You know,
So many contenders. So
well, no, it was the one. Well, if people's houses get flooded due to global warming, then they can sell their houses.
What?
Yeah, he actually said this. I mean, we know that Ben Shapiro comes up with some dumb shit.
Yeah, he's useless.
And by the way, you and Kevin have got it wrong. His yarmulke hasn't got larger. His head has shrunk from all the shit which comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, he's got a reverse engineering. All the shit comes out of his mouth.
You know him and Blair White did a video together, right?
Oh God!
Yeah.
This is a bad mix up his shoe and what's her face, Lauren Southern.
But they've got something in common. They're both really insecure, right?
Oh, that's true.
Blair, it's you're not trans enough, and Ben, it's you're a plastic Jew. He would call me a plastic Jew because I eat bacon sandwiches and I'm a lefty and I'm LGBTQ.
Why? Sorry. Why plastic?
Plastic Jew.
Yeah. Why is that? What's the plastic meant? Like you're a Barbie doll or something?
I'm not a real Jew.
I always love it when people who are against, cancel culture and all that stuff end up doing the exact same thing. Only when they do it, it's like calling people out.
Well, Gina Carano, the whole thing with Gina Carano, oh, this is cancel culture, and then the same people tweet without any fucking sense of irony, #cancel Disney Plus.
Right. Yes. They're actually using the word cancel, not unsubscribe.
And the thing is, of course, it's now been announced that she's going to be making films with Ben Shapiro, and I thought, is there an anti-Semite Ben Shapiro isn't prepared to get into bed with?
Yeah. Have you found one yet?
I mean, he'd stuck up for the Proud Boys. I unearthed that, right? He's. But I actually think, I mean, as I said, I'm not a religious Jew. I'm an atheist. And I do get shit from people. I have had shit on people on Twitter go, how can you be a Jew? You're an atheist. Not understanding that, Jews are an ethnic group. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
But having said that, I mean, even the most sort of like uber Zionists I know, that I have, we disagree sometimes about Israeli policy. But they respect. I'm not an observant Jew. They respect that. But I'm just as Jewish as they are.
Yeah, it's weird because when you're talking, it's so Jewish can refer to, as you well know, language, culture, or people. And when it comes to like having Jewish heritage, that could that's like saying I'm not a Polish American because I'm not Catholic. Like, what? These things are, like, one is an idea, the other one is an ancestry. One of these things is not like the other. It's just, I think people don't have clear categories in their head.
And
or they're being disingenuous.
And Ben should remember, right, that if he's a helpful shield for the far right to say, oh, we're not anti-Semitic. Look, Ben Shapiro agrees with us, right? Mm-hmm. And believe me, I've been put in that position myself in the past, which we'll get to. With libertarians, I'd add.
Okay.
Well, basically, I used to do podcasts with this guy called Gard Goldsmith, right? And any time Israel would be, not Israel, the Israeli Defense Force decided to bomb the shit out of Gaza or the West Bank, I'd get a call. Can you come on the show? I knew why. I was a helpful shield, wasn't I?
Yeah.
So that he could say, is criticizing Israel anti-Semitic? Well, back then, to me, it wasn't. Obviously, we have to deal with the International Holocaust Memorial Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which says, yes, criticizing the state of Israel is anti-Semitic, but criticizing the government of Israel is not.
Right, exactly. Like one is talking about just condemning its existence, which is anti-Semitic, but condemning the policies that they choose to enact on others. That's
Yeah,
an
but
opinion.
there's an attempt to now Benjamin Netanyahu, the International Criminal Court are investigating for war crimes,
Good.
and he called them anti-Semitic. And I went, look, if you've committed
Yeah.
war crimes, mate, and you probably have because you're commit. I mean, the other thing, if you've been through the International Holocaust Memorial Alliance's basically they give examples of anti-Semitism. One of them is saying comparing Israel government policy to the policies of the Nazis. Well, that's really fucking hard because
Yes.
what Benjamin Netanyahu is essentially doing in the West Bank is Lebensraum.
There are, there are other examples of people trying to forcefully move or contain or control or decimate a population, like American policies driving Native peoples onto reservations and then renegotiating the treaties they signed only one-sided, basically breaking their treaties and then mass shifting people over again to so I would say that there is no legitimate way of comparing Nazi and Israeli state policies, but there are other policies.
Yeah, but do you understand?
That would,
do you understand the infamous what I'm trying to say here? Because
in terms of their policies toward basically genocide.
well, no, I mean Lebensraum meant room to live, right? It was Hitler's.
Yeah. Lebensraum.
That's
okay.
it. So I can't pronounce it properly.
That's okay. That's all right.
Right. Well, you live in Germany, so I guess
Yeah, I have a slight advantage. I still speak shit German after being here for almost a decade. It's sad.
Yeah. And essentially, the first person to ever say this to me was a Jew. Yeah, they said, "Do you realise that that's what Benjamin Netanyahu is essentially doing?" And I thought about it. I went, "Yeah, and ethnic cleansing,
Yeah. I read Thomas Friedman's From Beirut to Jerusalem when I was 16 or 17. One of the phrases that stayed with me is his interview with a woman who lived in Israel before the 1967 war. And she said, before the territorial expansion, you felt like you could stretch your legs out. That, the country was basically safe. But after the 67 war and the new territory, there was more of a hesitancy, more of a restriction for people who were Israeli because of this massive conflict that has been going on, ever since. So the idea is it's sort of funny that in a more contracted state, someone felt like they had more Lebensraum than they did after the 67 war.
But, and I mean, the other thing is, and the other comparison they don't like is, I will say, like the original intention of Zionism to establish a Jewish homeland, I agree with, right? Mm-hmm. And I do agree with the establishment of Israel, okay? I just believe that Israel should keep its 67 borders, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I want, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And, I was talking with Kevin the other night, I said, look, if there's a pogrom, where the fuck do I go? The only, obviously I don't have South African citizenship anymore. I never really had it. I always had a British passport. And so, the only other place I could go is Israel. It's a safe haven for me for being a Jew, right? Now, I doubt there will be a pogrom, but you just don't know. I mean, this country is already in an economic crisis, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And these are the kind of things which cause the rise of the far right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're still experiencing the fallout from the economic crash of 2008 in terms of far right activity.
Yeah. So, but I really do strongly disagree with some of the policies of the Israeli government. I really do. And, having lived in South Africa, I'm very well aware of apartheid. And one of the laws in Israel is if there's a if there's a Palestinian in a hospital ward and there's a Jew who doesn't like them being there, an Israeli,
Israelis here. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Israeli.
You can have Arab Israeli. They do have Arab Israelis.
Yeah. If you have an Israeli there, right, the Israeli can ask for the Palestinian to be removed.
That's ridiculous.
Now.
It violates human rights.
Right. During apartheid, I've always told this story Queen, the band, who I despise anyways, because I just don't like their music.
Okay.
They played Sun City,
Yep.
which was the South African version of Vegas, right?
Yeah, I remember. I was old enough.
And
I'm old enough to
Brian
remember
May, the guitarist, has always defended them playing Sun City. And he said, we said we wouldn't play to segregated audiences. Yes, sure, Sun City was a designated unsegregated area. That's true. But the law was, if white people didn't like black people being there, they could ask the black people to move.
So basically not desegregated.
Yeah. So this is the problem with, this is the comparison I will make with Israel. The Israeli government is, orchestrating an apartheid regime.
Yes, definitely. And they're stealing land through these building of these walls to make de facto something that they can't get through treaties.
Do you know why they have to call it a security barrier and not a border, which it actually is?
Yeah, probably to get it for international law reasons.
Yeah. So, do you think Biden will be a bit more critical of the Israeli government?
I have no idea.
Obama
I know
was.
that it took him a month to call Netanyahu.
Yeah, but I do like the one thing I did like about Netanyahu was when Trump sort of after the election, and of course Trump was trying to overturn the election results. He had a call from Netanyahu, and Netanyahu refused to endorse him. Yeah, and Netanyahu knew the score.
Oh yeah, I mean he needs Democratic support for various funding of Israel, foreign aid, and other things that they're interested in foreign policy wise. He knows that he has to not play too close, be too obvious about who he really likes.
So it's really mixed for me. The whole thing of Israel. Yeah, I agree with there should be a Jewish homeland. We are a persecuted bunch, but at the same time, I despair at the policies of the state of the government of Israel.
And the people who keep voting that government in.
Well, yeah, and there are elections in about a month. Again, it's about the fourth election in 2 years.
Yeah, when's it? I mean, God, how long has it been since Peres? Shimon Peres.
Shimon Peres died about 2-3 years ago.
Well, yeah, but Netanyahu and his government has been there for how long? It feels like decades. Maybe it just feels longer.
Yeah, and I mean the political left in Israel seems to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
The Labour Party, which governed that country for 30 odd years, right, is now basically the most uber nationalistic Zionist party. Now gets more votes than the Labour Party.
Yeah. I
mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And one thing I was going to say earlier was that I agree with the original intent of Zionism, but what Zionism has become is fascistic. If you look at there's that, I did go through it a while ago. There's that famous meme about the 12 or 14 signs of fascism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Netanyahu's brand of Zionism,
yeah,
you think, oh Christ, it is it's becoming fascistic.
Definitely, it is drifting farther and farther right.
And
it's very worrying.
Yeah.
Very worrying.
And also...
And his corruption as well. I mean, he's been investigated multiple times for corruption.
I remember about 2-3 years ago, Jane Fay, who's a trans journalist and activist and friend of mine, she said to me, she said, Julie Bindle's Jewish, isn't she? And I went, yeah. She went, well, how come she's defending Posey Parker posing with for photos with Norwegian Nazis?
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh, you don't know, do you? And she went, what? I said, well, obviously Bindle's a TERF as well as Posey, but I said to her, there's been a realignment of the far right when it comes to Zionism.
Oh, yeah.
because you have the likes of Tommy Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
basically saying he's a Zionist. Okay, and the thing is, everyone seems to think Zionist is just a substitute for Jew. No, Zionism is a political ideology. Okay, and it's a nationalistic ideology, and like all forms of nationalism, it can go way too far. And anyways, the point is, I mean, Michael Gove is identified as a Zionist. He's a born again Christian. He's not a Jew. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, right? And the trouble is, though, a lot of people people involved in the the current Israeli government, like Netanyahu's son, they all support Tommy Robinson because Tommy Robinson supports the Israeli government and Zionism. Well, what they don't realise is that the far right supports Zionism because they would like all us Jews to fuck off and live in Israel. They don't want us here.
Yeah, they'd like to be able to use a Jewish ethno-state, that phrase.
Yeah.
Because it gives them cover and it legitimizes their racism.
Yeah, exactly. Talking of nationalists, and he's also an individualist. Work that one out for yourself. I think you know what's coming. Your secret admirer, Sargon.
Oh yeah, just released a video today, actually, like in a half hour before the show, because it's only a 10-minute video, and I wanted people to watch this. But yeah, Sargon is flailing.
I'll nerve. I was talking to Kevin about the time he turned up on your show. He was late because he was taking his shit, having a cigarette, which was a means of control, wasn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah. He turns up late. Then says, "Oh, the radical left are taking over the Democrat Party." This was just after the midterms, and of course you just turned around and said, "So how many Justice Democrats were elected then, Sargon?"
Well, this is it. You just, like, the best way to deal with him is to ask him to back up what he says, because he'll flail. It's so simple. All you have to basically just to keep doing citation needed, and he just falls apart because he doesn't know things.
Yeah, well, I was going to say I always remember there was a trans woman and I was a member of UKIP. Yeah, you heard right.
Yeah, I'm pausing and I'm trying to calculate that sentence in a way that makes sense. But then again, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, got a lot of people who work against their own identity interests.
The thing is, I got on with her on a personal level because she liked drinking. She got the whole punk rock thing with me because a lot of trans women don't get the punk rock thing with me. It's all my spiky punk rock attitude. She got it. She liked gaming, and she was a big Doctor Who fan and liked sinking beers. And I thought, well, okay, fine. I get on with her on a personal level, right?
Yeah.
But it was the politics, which was the problem. I mean, here's the twist. Yeah, she was a member of UKIP, yet lived out in Switzerland. So she wanted. She never got my annoyance at the fact that she wanted to have a say in the constitutional direction of this country whilst not actually paying any fucking income tax in this country.
Or being impacted by the laws of it, or the effects of it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, but the first time I sort of, we met up for a drink, she goes, "Oh, Labour are National Socialists." I went, "Oh, here we go with this old far-right trope. Yeah, the Nazis were socialists because they just happened to say they were socialists. Yeah. Yes, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is a democracy.
Yeah, they have in the name. Come on.
No, they're not. I responded with the thing about Korea, North Korea, and she shut up after that.
Yeah.
But for instance, if I was in a conversation, she wouldn't try it on with me, right? But if I was in a conversation with other people with her, she would try it on. Yeah, and she would do all these sort of sweeping fucking generalisations. And it did remind me of Sargon in many respects. And I think it's a thing with the far right. Now, I basically, we kept friends, I thought, well, you keep a hard right. I mean, I kept saying to her, what about all the shit which, Farage, all the homophobic and transphobic shit Farage says and Roger Helmer says? And she goes to me, oh, I've met Roger Helmer. He's not. He's okay. I mean, she posted on a trans group. I had a go at her for being a member of UKIP and all the transphobia that they've various members have said, and she 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 said, oh well, here's a picture of me with Roger Helmer and Paul Nuttall, who was the deputy leader at the time.
No, Paul
Right.
Nuttall.
Yeah, and I said,
Stuart Lee's dog wasn't Paul Nuttall of UKIP.
yeah, and I just simply turned around and said to her, look, Rebecca, they pretend to like you because you give them fucking money, duh. Because she gave them quite a lot. Rebecca was quite well off, and I know that she was part of their VIP club, whatever. I think it was called the Sovereign Club or something. So she got to have dinner with Nigel on a regular basis and stuff. We actually fell out when it was back in 2019. When Farage left UKIP, I said, so you're going to follow him to the Brexit part? And she went, no. And of course, this was the time when Sargon was campaigning.
Oh, right, 2018.
Yeah. And I said, how can you fucking defend a guy who sends rape tweets about rape to a Labour female MP who's a survivor of sexual assault? She said, yeah, but he didn't say he was going to rape her. I went, you don't bring that fucking subject up with a woman.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Anybody. I mean, I understand in this specific instance it was a woman, but just anybody you wouldn't say that to. I mean, it's just a reprehensible thing generally, and Sargon said it. And here it was egregious in addition because he knew she wasn't a victim or survivor. And he chose to throw that in her face because he could, he felt.
And
what a piece of shit.
And then she went on to defend Tommy Robinson, and I put the phone down on her. I went, Rebecca, this is the last time we speak. If you're going to support, a racist yeah, that's it. Bye bye, and that was it. I was really, I was heartbroken because I had to write. Then I wrote a piece on Medium about it during the European elections, and. I was heartbroken because I actually got on with her on a personal level.
Yeah.
And I mean, she always remembered me at Christmas. I remember on my 40th birthday, she took me to a Michelin-star restaurant, and I remember the bill came to more than £500. Most of it was on. Nice. I managed to down about 4 bottles of South African white Chardonnay, and I'm not a particular wine drinker. I don't even remember much about that experience. I just got so drunk. I remember her bundling me into a taxi, giving the taxi driver money, and he drove me all the way home. I mean, look, she was, she, as I said, on a personal level, I got on with her fine. It was just, I can't. I have a line, and the line was Tommy Robinson. I'm not prepared to support for someone to sit there and say I support a violent thug, someone who has been to prison for violence, as a using it as a means of for political ends. That's terrorism.
Yeah, I had, well, not on that issue, but I had a friend who a couple times said things that sounded turfy, but like it wasn't full out turfy until she, this is a couple of years ago now, but she went off on Riley Dennis and said something that I thought was, she might as well, like the equivalent is if she would have called someone the N word with a hard R. I was that offended, and I was like, that's it, we're done. Like I'm not gonna no, this is, I can't tolerate this in my life. There's a lot of things, like she was a huge Corbyn fan and big into Labour, and we got along on politics, 90% of things.
Well, I can tell you,
if she was going to be that viciously transphobic, if that's what she really felt in her heart, then I can't have that in my life.
I was gonna say, Labour has a bigger problem with transphobia than it does with anti-Semitism. As someone who's both Jewish and trans, I can testify to that. I mean, in fact, a bunch of trans people, all of whom I know, have actually set up their own group splitting from LGBT plus Labour because of the transphobia there is in LGBT plus Labour. And I sat on the National Executive for a year, well, almost a year. I had to resign because I tweeted something which Liz Kendall was meant to have said, but she actually didn't. This was during the Corbyn, when Corbyn was first running for leadership. And I'll admit, I fucked up there. But when I was on the committee, they never wanted me around. They were ableist, they were transphobic, you know?
Yeah, I think, well, one of my critiques, I want to say, of old Labour, of the old Labour Party, was that it was really good for the people who were in the unions, but those unions were disproportionately white and men, and they were kind of machismo places. And so, one of the good things that came about with New Labour was the all-women shortlists and real, what you guys unflinchingly call positive discrimination. Americans would like froth at the mouth at that term. And really making efforts to diversify the candidate pool, because with the selection system as it was, it has those kinds of bigotries and biases have to be consciously addressed and broken down, because otherwise you're going to end up with the historic members of the party who are going to generally be, white guys, and they're going to just pick guys who look like them.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, LGBT plus Labour was a bastion of Blairism. It was a Blairite bastion. Seriously, it was.
But I mean, trans issues were never properly. It was very focused on the LGB side, the whole thing about the silent T. Trans issues were really not until, I want to say, the last 10 years properly dealt with on a level equal to other groups that are allies together in the LGBTQ. IA is even less. I can see where it's kind of like a white feminism critique,
right.
White feminism and turfism. I don't see why those aren't incompatible at all.
Yeah.
And so so I think that critique is valid, that the kind of diversity they were going for in the 90s was still too limited in its scope.
Yeah, I mean, the dirtiest by-election campaign ever in this country was Southwark, that's it. It was in 1983. Peter Tatchell had been picked as the Labour parliamentary prospective candidate. This was actually a safe Labour seat. And, well, basically, there was a split in the constituency party because he was gay and openly gay. Mm-hmm. And so there was a rival candidate who was basically going around spouting homophobic smears. Mm-hmm. Of course, this split the vote, and the Liberal Democrats won the seat with Simon Hughes, who himself was also being rather homophobic, ironically, because 20 years later he came out as bisexual. Mm-hmm. And this was Labour under Michael Foot.
These are, and I know the U.S. Democratic Party, I think, is, it's not quite the same, because again, our primary system, I mean, we've elected as to office trans candidates, and so I think it's maybe more of a regional problem, I would say, but I don't think it's a party problem.
The left
at this point,
the left in America seem far more united when it comes to trans rights than the left here. I mean, I remember my friend Natasha Kennedy, Dr. Natasha Kennedy now.
Cool.
She wrote a blog post a few years ago when the Morning Star kept giving platforms to TERFs, right? The Morning Star, of course, the most left wing of all the Daily Nationals, right? Okay. And she wrote this blog post, which was a satire making up the Morning Star was now the paper read by the Ku Klux Klan. It's very funny, actually. And well, yeah, I mean, the radical and hard left do have a bit of an issue when it comes to transphobia. I can tell you, right? I mean, I remember. I think you were at this protest. there was the big anti-Trump protest,
Yeah.
right, in London.
With the baby Trump.
Yeah, in July 2018, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, you remember crowds?
Yeah, I talked to Kevin about this because I remember Emily Maitlis dancing in the office block above. We were waiting to go off, and we had to wait for about an hour and a half. But what I remember particularly about that is that when we got into Trafalgar Square, just as we were just as we were getting to Trafalgar Square, Paris Lee's came to the stage. Now, Paris Lee's, of course, well-known trans activist and writer. It was the only time I've ever seen an LGBTQ person on a platform at such a rally. Okay, usually, many of these rallies are organised by the likes of the SWP, Socialist Workers' Party.
Yeah.
And I've been to other anti-Trump protests. In fact, the last one I went to, I broke my fucking knee.
Oh.
Yeah, I tripped over a paving curb and got a hairline fracture on the knee. And I remember that time I went up and, I wore my trans flag because I knew all the speakers they would have. I mean, Tarek Ali, and people such as that, but no one from the LGBTQ community. I also remember I went to Unite Against Fascism conference, obviously one of the organisations which the SWP run. Yet again, no LGBTQ representation. Well, fascists don't pick on LGBTQ people, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, there was Leela from Doctor Who, Louise Jameson, who, was one of the people, shall we say, seeing her on television sort of helped me twig I was trans. Less than Linda Carter when she was Wonder Woman. That was the big one. I remember, when I saw her turn into Wonder Woman, I tried that in the playground the day afterwards, and
I used to do it the hallway of my house, hoping that I would turn into Wonder Woman. I used to take the Wonder Woman vitamin, like for kids, and then spin around in a circle, hoping I'd turn into Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but I was really disappointed I didn't turn into a woman.
Right, that's true. I was just trying. I didn't change clothes and stuff, but yeah. But I'm sorry. Yes.
Well,
so,
no,
we were both led by the movie Magic to think that transformations would be easy.
And I'd also point out I was four years old, so fuck off to TERFs and their fucking conspiracy theories about automeganophilia.
Just the whole thing about puberty blockers shouldn't even be an issue.
So, as I was saying. So I know full well that the radical left have, as I said, I was at the Unite Against Fascism conference, and I was made to feel not welcome. Let's just say that. For being trans.
Yeah, the left. I mean, again, there's a group who, because of their life experiences, are very keenly aware and care about identity politics, because the personal is political. And then there are people who also have an experience, not say that's an either or, but are more focused on their economic experience. And we have to work together. And we can't work together if they don't see us, or they won't acknowledge us, or they won't think about how they widen their idea of what experiences are. I get struggling. I struggled. I was never homelessness poor, but I've been in debt most of my life, and just never had a lot of money until much later in life to be comfortable. I've been very lucky in that way. But the idea of walking out home at night and worrying about being sexually assaulted is a daily thing, and that's a fear. If you're making it economically, you can kind of get things under control, maybe even if you're not doing great. But that kind of fear is just existential, and you don't want to have to, or racism, or being attacked in the streets because of who you are. Those are physical threats to your life that we shouldn't have to experience being equal citizens with other members of the society.
But I actually have a theory as to why the left. You see, back in the 80s, the left, the radical left, did support LGBTQ people. They did, right? And I have a theory why they've sort of become very lukewarm towards LGBTQ people. Back then, right, LGBTQ people were marginalised and oppressed. You know, we're talking the days of Section 28 here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they saw supporting as LGBTQ people as part of the liberation to overthrow capitalism, right?
Yes.
Thing is, when the Blair government got in and started to enact, you know, LGBTQ, legal protections for LGBTQ people, right? A lot of LGBTQ people, they're not interested in overthrowing fucking capitalism. What they're interested in is having a, you know, decent life. Yeah. So, you know, in other words, having a, you know, a normal middle class life. And of course, to people on the left, well, that's bourgeois. You know, on the hard, we're talking about the radical left and the hard left here. That's bourgeoisie. You know, that's not a no.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason. I mean, I always hear the you know, this might surprise you. I always hear this complaint around the time of Pride. Oh, it's become too corporate. Well, yeah, but that means that I can march around London for free, you know, waving a placard about trans rights.
Yeah, I mean, transforming capitalism is, if you look at it historically, if it had stayed stuck in its perspective as it was when the first factories were built, it wouldn't have survived. But it's adaptive, and it constantly does the least amount to take the pressure off, and that's a much more difficult enemy to fight because the goalposts are constantly moving, you know. And so when people say you have to live within the system, yeah, you can still reform it from within. But if it's going to, if working with it means people's lives are measurably better because a little less bigotry goes out in the world, or someone realizes they're not alone and are less suicidal, then then we have a moral obligation to use the system we currently have to make people's lives better.
Well, I think I don't know if I think it was BAE Systems, the arms manufacturer. They had a float at one of the prides, and there was some objections to that. Now I can understand why, right?
Yeah, that I'd side eye too.
And also, there are various corporations I've seen have floats who I've known have, shall we say, a dodgy history when it comes to supporting LGBTQ people. As in, they sacked them for being LGBTQ. But I don't want to sort of harp on about history. I would like to concentrate on the here and now. You know,
yeah.
If there are corporations like Chick-fil-A and the Jelly Bean, whatever company it makes Jelly Bean, or
the Pillow Guy,
or Netscape, if that's still a thing. You know, those, they're anti-LGBTQ now. Right? So, you know, sure, they should get a slap on the wrist for being so, as far as I'm concerned, from activists, okay? Right? But I do remember when North Carolina brought in that, you know, awful fucking bathroom bill. The first people on the phone to the governor to tell him he was an idiot were Pepsi Cola. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Also, and this was the biggest surprise, Wells Fargo, right? Yeah, you know, not my favourite kind of, you know, yeah, they're a mega bank, okay? Mm-hmm. Lit their headquarters in Raleigh up in the trans colours as solidarity.
Wow. Nice.
Wells Fargo did that.
Yeah.
So look, I'll admit I've had this conversation with Ariad de Mesla, who's a libertarian who's trans. And, you know, basically she said on air, you know why this is. It's because, they wouldn't have done this if there wasn't any profit in it.
Well, if it's PR, good.
Yeah.
It means that they're siding with expanding rights.
Yeah, but what I have noticed, particularly in the United States with corporations, is that they have actually, you know, when you had all Trump's anti-LGBTQ stuff, the corporations still kept their inclusive policies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. It seems to me, you know, I obviously, you know, I'm somewhat skeptical of capitalism, you know, but, you know, and we were talking about Marx's analysis of globalization before, and I think Marx was right in many respects. But it you know, my response to, you know, the hardcore Marxists is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay? Capitalism needs reform, right? I would like, I have no problem with there being a free market, right? But the way I would like things to work is that more companies become cooperative in structure. Right?
Yeah, I think employees should automatically become shareholders.
Yeah.
And their profits should be paid out, before
Isn't it in Germany there has to be an employee representative on the board of directors of corporations? I think it is. Yeah.
Works councils, they're called. So it's not an antagonistic relationship. But just to take a step back, I think that for all of the spots of evangelical fervor and their lapdog politicians, like Trump, who will do discriminatory things, people who work at these companies are also like people, and they know an employee, or they know their coworker or their boss or someone in another department, not just as a worker but like as a person, and they might really like that person and their gay partner and are happy for them when they adopt kids because it's going to be a great family life. And so even if the government's who is in government flip-flops and those things change, it doesn't change their feelings about their friends or their colleagues, people that they know.
Yeah.
And they don't want to see them hurt because of other people's hate. And that's why mainstreaming is so incredibly important, and why representation, like you said, at events is also a way to validate that goal, is to put it into practice in your organization.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say, I just want to get on with my life. That's it, and not be hassled for being trans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Or
it's very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the shit. I mean, the thing is, all the shit which has been said about trans being, deviants and sexual predators and a threat to children. We've heard all this before. We heard it in the 1980s about gays and lesbians.
Again, they just recycle the same arguments and apply it to the new thing.
Yeah.
It's the same arguments, just like with the Red Scare.
And those bigots failed then, and they will fail again. It's just going to take time, and that is frustrating. All right. I was going to say, so I've mentioned it a few times. I did spend some time in the United States. Well, I've spent a few times time in the United States. I was out there when the whole Ron Paul revolution. I always loved the Southerners. Ron Paul, do like that, Ron Paul. And I actually blame Ron Paul for Donald Trump, believe it or not. I'll tell you why. The first time I saw sort of the far right, a mass movement of the far right on social media was with Ron Paul. That fed into the Tea Party, and that fed into Donald Trump's campaign.
Yeah, there's a whole line that goes back to the Civil War, in that sort of cluster of individuals and ideology. Yeah. You draw a through line.
And to my shame, I supported Ron Paul. I was a libertarian then. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But weirdly, libertarianism has an irrational belief in the goodness and ability and competence of people.
You see, how do I explain this? I spent most of the 1990s drunk. It was my way of dealing with gender dysphoria. But it started to really impact on my health, right?
Yeah. As
these things do. So I had to sober up. I still didn't deal with my gender dysphoria as I should have, and there's only one way to deal with the degree to which I have gender dysphoria, and that's transition. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I've now done it, but what happened was, I started. I heard, I was on the radio one night, there was a discussion, and there was someone from the Libertarian Alliance, which used to be a think tank here. And it just made sense to me, He was talking about all drugs should be legalised, and I was a habitual pothead. So, yeah, sure. And I always remember the Steve Shives line from his 5 Stupid Things about Ron Paul, which is, so do you think the youth of today want to have balanced budgets and governments living, spending within their means, and or is it that Ron Paul wants to legalise pot? Yeah. I always remember it because it's true, right? And of course, libertarianism, as I now know, is a honey trap for the right. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And of course, to young people, that's enticing.
Be your own boss.
Yeah.
All the time, yeah. Superman.
So, and I remember the Liberal, so I wanted I didn't like Blair. I didn't like the Labour Party at that time. I mean, it was just before the Gulf War. Sorry, not the Gulf War. The illegal invasion of Iraq, which Tony Blair should be in prison for. Anyways.
Was that the first one?
No, the second one.
For Kuwait. Okay, the second one.
I said the Gulf War, and I said, it's the invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Yeah, 2005. Okay, got it.
2003.
3. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm having a few.
Sorry, it was he was up for re-election in 2005, and they talked about the Iraq decision. Yeah. And people in the Labour Party who were Labour members and Labour voters wanted to give him a bit of a bloody nose over that.
Well, I remember that. So that obviously, so I started to, I was already going down the libertarian rabbit hole as it was, but I wasn't a conservative. I never have been. I just detest the Tories. In fact, my family are all Tories, all uber conservatives. In fact, they're South African conservatives, which is even worse. Just really nasty fucking people who's. Yeah, I know some people are going to accuse me of an anti-Semitic trope here, but believe me, this is my actual family. This is my actual experience. They care more about counting money than they do for caring for people. Yeah.
See, that's a compliment in Republican circles in America. So.
Yeah. Well, some of my family are tax exiles living out in the Caribbean now. I mean, they're very, very wealthy. They've always had dodgy fucking business dealings. I mean, they used to have dealings with Tiny Roland, and if you know anything about Tiny Roland, well, you should look him up. Seriously dodgy businessman.
Okay.
Anyways, so I was disappearing down the libertarian rabbit hole. And I remember, well, what about the Liberal Democrats? Because I'd read John Stuart Mill, and I knew that John Stuart Mill was a founding member of what was then the Liberal Party. And obviously, to libertarians, on liberty is, part of libertarian philosophy because of Mill's harm principle.
Which, by the way, if you ever have the chance to read, to anyone in the audience, try reading it aloud. It is written to be, delivered, in my opinion, as opposed to read silently. I think it works much better as almost read it as a speech in your mind. But it's a wonderful piece of writing.
Of course, later on I realised that libertarians cherry-picked that. Because if you read, I forgot the name of the title, you might be able to tell me here. There's a previous book he wrote, which, if anyone's heard the term failed state, which was used by Tony Blair and, George Bush to invade Iraq, that stems from that essay he wrote. The thing is, if you take Mill as a whole, he's really the father of left liberalism. But if you just take on liberty, it sounds like he's a libertarian or a classical liberal. So
yeah, you have to look at the body of his work. I mean, he was a big-time feminist, from what I recall.
Yeah, he supported. He
introduced it, didn't he?
Yeah, he supported he supported the suffragette movement when it was in its infancy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he was.
I've got he wrote A System of Logic, the Theory of Liberty, Social. No, I don't know if these. Oh, anyway, I don't know of I thought this was his books, but they're just doing his thoughts on freedom of speech and colonialism and slavery and racial equality. So, anyway.
Yeah, I just forgot the title of it. But he used the term failed state. I've heard it quoted in other places. So, but anyways, so I'd read On Liberty. I'd read The Road to Serfdom by that point. I'd read Friedman. Free to Choose. Of course, I turned a blind eye to his involvement with General Pinochet, of course. So I saw the local Liberal Democrat councillor and said to me, I've got nothing against gays and lesbians so long as they don't live next door to me. And I went, yeah, I don't want anything to do with the Liberal Democrats. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with heterosexuals as long as they don't live next to me. What is that like? Are you I hate people who try to be an asshole while making this sort of cover that they're not being a complete asshole.
So, what happened next was, I had a trans friend actually over in Tennessee who I spoke to quite often, and one day, because we got on, she was a conservative libertarian. She said one day she didn't like Ron Paul, fun enough. She said one day she said, "Do you know Ron Paul's running for president?" No. Who is he? I didn't know who he was at the time. I said, I think you'll like him. So I went and did some research, and yeah, he wants to legalise pot. He wants to legalise prostitution. Oh, I'm all for that. And through that, I came across a radio show called Free Talk Live, who are based in New Hampshire, and they're part of the Free State Project. And the Free State Project it came about to a guy called Jason Sorens, who worked for some Koch brothers funded, it might have been the Cato Institute, and he wrote in a paper saying that if 20,000 libertarians move to one small state, such as New Hampshire or Wisconsin, not Wisconsin, Wyoming, then it could make a political impact. So they were trying to get me to join. Now, I did go over there, and, they were my kind of people. I remember, 10-foot snow drifts. I was invited to a party, and before I could get to the porch, I was offered 3 joints and 2 beers. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to get on with these guys. The problem was that they were... Not long after this, I found out I had Asperger's, and that changed a lot of things for me, because it was like, I started to think the reason I'd been attracted to libertarianism was due to my Asperger's, because libertarians always have simple answers for complicated things. Get rid of the welfare state and communities and private charities will step in. It's all very logical, very simple. And what happened then was I started to question myself. I was working for a libertarian blog, and I remember there was this guy called Joe Stack. I remember this very well. He flew a plane into the IRS, and I wrote a piece about how libertarians should not worship this guy. He used violence. Libertarians don't believe in the non-aggression principle. You there, Kristi? Kristi, you there?
Yeah, I just muted myself because you were in the middle of a story. That's all.
So yeah, this guy called Joe Stack flew a plane into an IRS building, and libertarians, I believe in the non-aggression principle. And I said, well, this guy's, he was wrong. Next thing I know, on the same blog, someone wrote saying he was a hero. That point, I started to really question myself. But the problem was, because I think thinking had become so ingrained the way I thought, it was hard to shake it, And I nearly did actually go out to New Hampshire to live. I nearly did. And thank goodness I didn't. Because I wouldn't have survived, for one thing. And I would have just hated it.
Yeah, probably.
Anyways, what happened next was my dysphoria was just bugging me all the fucking time. And, well, eventually I transitioned. There was a change of government here, and it was a rabbit in the headlights, because I realised the way the Tories were going to pay for the banking crisis was pick on disabled people, and I'm disabled.
Yeah, what happened with that, basically interrogating disabled people and putting off their benefits and making them do a point. It was horrific, absolutely horrific.
And then you see, the trouble was I was still trying to shake myself. I couldn't get out of thinking a certain way, and it was actually Natasha Kennedy, Dr. Natasha Kennedy, sorry, sat me down one night, fed me beers, and literally did deprogram me. It was over it started one night, but it was over several sessions. She deprogrammed me, and I moved back to the left. But what I'm saying is, the reason I fell down the libertarian rabbit hole was basically it was something to fill up my life. And believe me, when you get to a political ideology as extreme as libertarianism, it does fill up your life. And as a distraction from having gender dysphoria. I know it sounds weird, but that's the truth.
No, I think it was sort of a displacement activity. It was a way to keep yourself focused and busy and not thinking about the thing that was
I did transition. It was the best thing I ever did.
Yes, congratulations.
But anyways, back to we've gone way off. I wanted to the few things I wanted to say about Sargon.
Oh yeah, Sargon. And
actually, it does feed into the trans thing because I'm going to bring up Volsh. I think you were so right in your analysis about Volsh's first debate with Sargon. In that,
remind me what I said.
Well, I remember that. I remember Sargon actually came out of that better, looking better because, and I'll tell you what, Volsh went into him like a steam train, and which is what Volsh sometimes does, and Sargon just had to sit there and basically play the victim.
Yes, he plays a victim, and then he also tries to do this fake agreement with you, or he has various tactics to sidestep real discussions and instead give hypotheticals that are ridiculous and have you respond to them, or try to put some of the blah 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 and you agree with me on this blah 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 right before you can get a word in edgewise. So he uses a lot of psychological tactics rather than actual cogent arguments, robust arguments even.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the second debate Volsh had, I think Volsh twigged and he had a better debate. But the reason I'm bringing Volsh up in particular is if I know Kevin debated Blair White now, and I know the circumstances. It was the third time he had tried to get a debate with Blair White. She turned up an hour and a half late
on someone else's channel.
Yeah, and then proceeded.
Worski? Was he on Worski?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, yeah.
Is that Andy No-Go?
No. Andy Worski is an alt-right piece of shit who was involved with internet blood sports back in the day.
All right. Oh God, that sounds like a line that said. Sorry, there's a line from Bad Santa about. It sounds very similar to that. Anyways, great film by the way.
Yeah, that's Billy Bob Thornton, right?
Yeah.
Someone else raved about that film in the last couple weeks that I heard, so I'm intrigued now. I think it was a video analysis about when you like the bad guy and what the story has to have about the bad guy for you to like him enough to go with him on the journey.
Yeah. Anyways, I always watch that Christmas Eve along with the original Black Christmas, which, by the way, was censored here when it was first released in 1974.
I don't even know if I know what that is. Black Christmas.
Yeah, it's got Margot Kidder, who was, of course, Lois Lane in the Christopher Reeve.
I saw that in the cinema.
I saw Superman 2 in the cinema. Showing my answer.
Is that the one? That wasn't the one with Richard Pryor. That was the one about California.
The one about California is the first Superman film.
Oh, okay. So what was the second one?
It's the one where he has to sacrifice being Superman to fall in love with Lois Lane.
Oh yes, and he becomes weak and he goes into a bar and somebody breaks his hand.
Yeah, it's the one with Terrence Stamp in it.
Okay. Oh right.
General God.
Yes, I love Terrence Stamp. He's such an amazing actor.
Yeah. Anyways, so where was I?
Oh, sorry, we were about Sargon. Something about Sargon.
Yeah. So we're talking about Kevin's debate with Blair
Oh,
White.
right. Yes.
Right. So there was the third time he tried to get a debate with Blair. She turned up an hour and a half later and then proceeded for the most of the rest of the time to complain that Kevin had called her a cunt.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
With all the shit she's said in her life.
Yeah, which I thought was hilarious because, I mean, she probably doesn't get that in this country. You go to any pub and that word will be bandied around quite a bit. I'm
Yeah, that
telling
was
you.
a kind of a culture shock to me, but I quickly adapted.
Yeah. Well, I always have this problem with Kristi Abbey and Ozma when I've done shows with them, and I just say cunt, just it's just one of my one of those words which is helpful in my vocabulary.
It could be worse. You could be Australian. Then it would be congenital. Like you'd have to say. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Anyways, so where was I? So one thing I noticed, and I've also noticed her debate with Natalie Wynn, which I think happened around about the same time.
Yeah.
Was Blair's Kevin would confront her with shit she'd said, and she would go, "No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that."
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Volsh debated her, and he tried that, and she did the normal. I didn't say that, but then what he did was she said something about non-binary people in that actual discussion, and he turned it against her, and he took her apart. When Volsh is good, he's very good.
Yeah,
it was the first time I saw a debate, defeated in a debate. I mean, at the end of it, she's playing with her phone, looking completely bored because, well, she's been defeated.
Yeah, I don't agree with his politics, but tactics-wise, Destiny is the best at pulling up clips. He knows what he's going to ask people before they go on his show, and he gets the clips ready. He did it with no bullshit. Where he's like, here's where you said this. You want to see you saying that? I'll show you. The more you can do that on YouTube and show people contradicting themselves, I think that's good.
Yeah. No, you didn't pull up a clip.
No. He just caught her a live show. But yeah. I think the person who does it the best, even though I don't agree with his politics, is Destiny.
Well, I mean, if ever people want to see the comprehensive video on Blair White and her lies, go and see the Hunter Avalon video. It's particularly spicy because Hunter Avalon used to be a friend of ours.
Yeah. Well, of course, she had that whole, I'm leaving politics because all the people on the right are just doing it to make money and they don't believe it. And I'm not going to name names, but I've had these conversations. And then she went away for like 2 months and then she came back.
Well, the other thing is she only withdrew that video where she falsely said the shit about Janine Marie Kroc because Janine Marie Kroc threatened to sue her. And that was gonna hurt Blair's bottom line, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, her bottom. She's very interested in her bottom.
So yeah, Sargon. I see he's jumped on the transphobic bandwagon.
Oh yeah, always. Well, I mean, he tried to cover giving compliments to a trans woman as him being not transphobic.
Well, I saw that the other week. He was meant to debate some trans activists, and he pulled out.
Yes, I was actually just thinking because they said. Well, here's the thing, though. Carl is notoriously unreliable.
Right.
He will often say he's going to. The number of times that he's bailed, where Kevin invites him to do something. This not so much anymore, but a couple of years ago, and he would agree, and then you'd never hear from him again. Like he agreed to do a second debate. With me where he got to pick the question.
Right.
And he said, okay, we're going to set this up, and then never heard from him again.
Well, you took him apart. You took him apart in the first debate.
Well, yeah, he was smart not to take up a second debate because I would have taken him apart again because he can't handle timed responses where he can't interrupt and make false accusations against people.
Well, I just remember that, as I said, I remember the video after the midterms, and I remember you were ribbing him. That time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because the whole thing was to disarm him and take away his power by just laughing at him because he hates that.
But because the thing is, you can't take him fucking seriously. I just can't.
I do because he's got 100,000 subscribers on his new YouTube channel, and he is actively promoting the lie that my democracy is worthless. So it's a bit more personal for me to discredit him, because I see him as an ally to the authoritarian forces in my country. I don't think he necessarily wants it in his country, unless he kind of got Trumpian. You know, if he got Trump in Britain, he would go for dictatorship, I have no doubt. Some sort of philosopher king approach he'd adopt.
Well, this is what him and Stefan Molyneux want. They actually do. That's what they really want. And in fact, I would say a lot of libertarians actually want that as well. Seriously, I know it sounds weird to say that, but basically, well, you see, the thing is, when most libertarians I know will, well, I'm going to have to try and be a bit honest. I know libertarians who do vote Democrat, but generally, you know, even though if you look at the Democrat platform and the general libertarian principles, the Democrats are actually nearer than the Republicans.
Yeah, and they also might know the person.
Right.
You know, that person's policies in particular, and they might be more tolerable than if they were voting somewhere else.
Most libertarians will vote Republican, right?
Mm-hmm. That's my experience.
And the reason being, you know, it's got nothing to do with legalizing drugs. It's got nothing to do with, you know, freedom. It's got to do with the fact that they just don't like paying fucking tax. So you see, the thing is, I knew a libertarian a few years ago from here, funny enough, a guy called Zyra. He was a bit of an oddball kind of guy, and you know, you'd always confront him about the fact that he is the NHS. You know, I said, well, your taxes pay for the NHS, you know, the thing you fucking use. Mm-hmm. And he would go, you know, they pay for the roads, you know. You go, oh, don't do that one on me, because libertarians hate that one, don't they? The roads, yeah. But he would go, what about war? War. I said, yeah, when was the last time you went to an anti-war protest, Ira? He goes, I do it online. I said, where? It's not on your website. There's no anti-war stuff on your website. Oh, you link to antiwar.com. But that's only because they're a libertarian site, you know? I mean, I used to know Angela Keaton, who ran it. So, anyway.
Moan.
And actually, I will say one thing for Angela Keaton. She was a radical feminist who actually was a trans ally. But the point, and then I just remember one time, I rang him up, and he said, I'm not doing so well. I said, why? He said, I just had to pay my tax bill. I said, well, how much was it? 30 grand. I said, how much did you earn? 130,000. I went, Jesus, you're not going to exactly be living on as a pauper on 100 grand, are you?
Yeah. Exactly. Come on.
You know, it's all about greed and selfishness. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there is an element of our psychology. Now, this is an excuse, but it might err toward explanation, is that we recall losses or things bad that happened to us more intensely than we remember good things. So the fact that he had to pay 30,000 quid, that he's profiting 100,000, if he really is focused on his money, that's going to bother him more than he's going to be, wow, hey, I'm up 100,000. And again, it's not an excuse, because all of us have that propensity in our minds. I see my paycheck and I just look at what I netted. I don't even really look at the top part, because it's gone. It's paid for stuff, whatever, you know. But for people who, are very focused on that, it's a continual source of grievance for them. They just need to deal with it. Taxes, as whatever Wendell Holmes said, is, I like paying taxes. With them I buy civilization. You know? Well,
yeah, I kind of feel taxes are the price to pay in a civil society.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, I don't want to have a charity to deal with homelessness. I want my taxes to deal with that problem.
Yeah, I do remember, funny enough, we're going to criticise the left here, right? So, Tom Moore just died, right? And I remember there was some lefties, because Captain Tom Moore, he raised 30 million for the NHS by, walking around his backyard. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was some lefties going, yeah, but he needn't have had, he shouldn't have had to, walk around his backyard to raise 30 million. You shouldn't have had to do that for the NHS. And I sort of said, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. The NHS should be better funded, but don't knock the guy, okay?
Yeah, in an ideal world, he wouldn't have to. in our world, he did. And so, yeah, you can completely honor him and also kind of deplore the conditions. Yeah, I think that, yeah, I understand both of those kind of.
Yeah.
Views.
As far as I'm concerned, I salute the guy. I think he was a decent human being. In fact, he's the kind of guy who makes me have faith in humanity.
Yeah, I mean, even if the NHS was fully funded, the strain on it meant that his raising 100,000 would have made a bigger difference because it would have been working from a better base. But there's always going to be need, and there's always going to be emergencies where people have to kind of step up because the government can't plan for everything.
Exactly. I was gonna say someone else died yesterday, and isn't the air fresher today because of it?
Yes, I know. It's like I woke up today and I scrolled through the Twitter top, hashtags, and Rush Limbaugh was just gone. I was like, okay, well, people moved on. That's, I actually tweeted out, I'm like, so people only needed about 12 hours to process Rush Limbaugh's death and move on. And I'm fine with that.
Well, I was about to go on air when it was announced, and my immediate reaction was the same reaction I had when Margaret Thatcher died. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The witch is dead. The witch is dead. I actually remember I was drifting away from libertarianism by this point, and Gardner had me on because I was someone in Britain he knew. He had me on one of his podcasts to talk about Margaret Thatcher dying, and so he said, right, so what do you think about Margaret Thatcher dying? And I suddenly went, ding dong, the witch is dead, the witch is dead, yeah. And he went, Jesus, people are going to be really offended that you said that. I went, good. I hate her.
Yeah, what she did was offensive.
She completely destroyed the industrial base of this fucking country. And, fucking Section 28, getting into bed with fucking General Pinochet, supporting apartheid South Africa. Do I need to go, any more with you, Gart? That was all the things I listed, covering up for the, covering up, about the truth about Hillsborough, stuff that, there was just a mountain of fucking shit she did, which I just think she was pure fucking evil. Anyways, my joke about Rush Limbaugh is he said he was pro-life, but yet he's dead. Yes. What a hypocrite.
Yes, I think Kevin also made that last night.
But the other thing, I've got a particular hatred for Rush Limbaugh because he used to take the piss out of HIV people who had died of AIDS.
The list, I actually have bookmarked for the show because someone went through like some of his most heinous things, and I was like, what a piece of shit he was. There was the Michael J. Fox thing. There was when he called 13-year-old Chelsea Clinton a dog. There was when he shamed the woman who testified about contraception. He had a song called Obama the Magic Negro that he played on his show. Yeah, there was that what you mentioned. He was just all the way down the line a piece of shit.
Yeah, can you tweet that to us? I'd like to have a look at that.
I can look it up on my bookmarks while we.
Yeah.
I can retweet it because I don't want to spend too much time staring at my phone while I'm trying to also listen to you.
I was going to say, yeah, I understand why you have to take Sargon seriously, and this reminds me.
Oh yeah, that's where we started.
Sorry, we're having a good conversation here.
Yeah.
I was going to say I was going to say. So this what you said there reminded me of I don't get invited to a lot of trans activist meetings because put it like this: it would be hilarious if Rosa Dawn ever made a video dumping on me as part of her Pillars of the Community, which, by the way, she's being sarcastic when she says that, but somehow that I'm some trans activist who's well respected in trans activist circles. I'm not, mainly because I'm a bit of a loose cannon, I think, for myself. But I did get invited to a trans activist meeting a couple of years ago. And you had, people like Susie Green there, who's the head of Mermaids, who do great work, by the way, helping trans youth.
Yeah.
She's had to enjoy a lot of hate. Anyways, there was a discussion about the media. And they were all saying, oh, well, we need to get, editorial pieces in the broadsheets, articles in the broadsheets. And I understood the logic that the broadsheets are what the politicians, read, and the politicians make the law. I get it, right? But here's the problem. Just because politicians make laws doesn't mean people follow those laws, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing, with a lot of this is a bit of a generalization, because there are certainly many trans women of colour, and certainly many trans women who are working class or who are in a poorer economic bracket. But generally, the trans community is made up of white, middle class, university educated professionals. Okay. Mm-hmm. Who can afford, and one of the differences between them and me is they can get in a car, drive down the street, and bypass a lot of abuse. Me, I have to walk down the street, and particularly every time I walk past the Weatherspoons, I get abuse. Yeah. Okay? And the people doing the abuse aren't the people reading the fucking broadsheets. They're the people who, will watch YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. So, I sat there and I said, Paul Joseph Watson, otherwise known as Pajama Watson, and I'm laying claim to having coined that term for him. And at that time, I think he had about 1.9 million subscribers.
Okay.
And I said, that is the combined, circulation of all the broadsheets.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
global reach.
Yeah. And, he's spreading transphobia. They just weren't interested. They weren't interested in YouTube at all.
Yeah, because it's not in their... They don't watch it, right?
Yeah.
That's not what they're reading broadsheets.
Yeah. And,
so, yeah.
And at least with yourself, who's very you're someone who's an academic, and I'm sure you do read, the New York Times or the Washington Post, as I do. I do read the Guardian, but at least you understand that YouTube is a powerful tool.
Yeah, certainly with a particular demographic.
Well, yeah, and that's why this is why we need more people fighting against fascism on YouTube. To be blunt about it, all Sargon, I know Stefan Molyneux has been banned from YouTube, but use him as an example, is they sit in mum's basement, intellectually wanking all day, thinking they're public intellectuals. When Sargon said that to you and Kevin, I nearly fell off my chair laughing. That he was a public intellectual. And before the
public farce.
Before YouTube, right, and before social media, he'd have been that weird guy no one went near.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Who had the oddball views, and you just went, see you later, dude.
Yeah. Just like the sound of his own voice.
Exactly. And I appreciate what you and Kevin do. And what you do yourself. I will admit, I said this to Kevin. When I first came across your channel, I thought, oh, for fuck's sake, you're just a Sargon reaction channel. But then I realised someone needs to respond to the shit he is saying.
Yeah, there's Tim Pool clips, and people go after Dave Rubin.
Well, yeah, I'm going after Rosa Dawn at the moment. Who's the British version of Blair White. And I still haven't got an answer from her. Which Koch brother did she have to suck off to get a leg up? The one who's alive or the one who's dead?
Ouch.
Well, she is just, she's just a really nasty piece of work. I even nastier than Blair, because Blair, I've never known Blair to actually hang out with TERFs. But I know that Rosa Dawn has, because I've seen a photo with her and Posey Parker. And also, Blair has never trolled Trans Day of Remembrance. there's at least 2 videos of Rosa Dawn doing so, which puts her on the same footing as Katie Hopkins. So, these are the... And I'm sick and... I just got sick and tired of basically people saying to me, oh, you've seen a Blair White video, you've seen... or India Willoughby, she's the other one. She's... Actually, India... The thing is, I feel a bit sorry for India because it's obvious... When you see her... being an, with her true scum spouting her true scum tropes, I know where that comes from. It comes from a very deep insecurity about herself, and I've been there. I was there when I came out. I used to, admit, I was a true scum bigot. I used to throw, people, gender fluid people under the bus. But I changed. I changed because I asked myself a very important question. Who the fuck am I to arbitrate what's trans and not? I'm not an expert. Blair White's not an expert. Rosa Dawn is not an expert. No one is. No trans person is an expert. We can only talk about our own experiences, and they're all, there are some similarities, and this is the thing which really upsets me. Rosa Dawn and Blair White would have been traumatized by gender dysphoria. It is a traumatic thing. And they should remember that before they dump on other trans people because they're not trans enough. The other video which a lot of people have attacked of Rosa Dawn's is the one where there was a person called Barbie Kardashian. Now, Barbie Kardashian, from the sounds of it, sounds like they've got some severe psychiatric problems, right? Walsh was the one who actually unearthed, I remember he did this live on air. Shame I can't find this video because I was trying to find it the other day, but I remember seeing it. That basically Rosa Dawn got all her info on Barbie Kardashian from a TERF website.
Oh, okay, yeah. Using basically TERF Oppo research.
Yeah.
And then washing it.
And the thing is, there's a thing called the fallacy of the good Jew, which is, those Jews who went along with the Nazis thinking they weren't going to get the worst of the persecution. Of course, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And both Blair and Rose are falling for this bullshit. And, when they're surplus requirements, they'll get thrown under the bus. Seriously, they will. Mm. If the far right ever got a foothold here, in some respects, as Kevin has pointed out to me, they already have. Tories adopting fucking BNP fucking policies now. But we haven't got to the stage where I would out and out say the Conservatives are fascists. But let's just say the real hardcore fascists ever got a foothold of power in this country. Mm-hmm. Rosa Dawn should remember she'd be on the fucking kettle trucks off to the gas ovens along with me. That's the case.
Yeah, they're willing to ally with people temporarily and then step on them for legitimacy, and then they'll lock them up when they get the power that they want.
Well, I joke about the Koch brothers, but actually Blair White is actually indirectly funded by the Koch brothers. She writes for the Post-Millennial, and my understanding is the Post-Millennial is bankrolled by the Heritage Foundation, and I know that the Koch brothers have an involvement with the Heritage Foundation. Mm-hmm. Or the one remaining Koch brother. I guess it's the Koch Foundation now, isn't it? So, so Blair White basically is a tool of the Koch brothers. This isn't like, I don't know what the right-wing people are going to go, yeah, but, this is like your version of George Soros paying everyone. No. I actually, bothered to go and look at this stuff. I just... we know that most of Blair White's, the remaining subscribers she has, because every time I go on a channel, I see it's gone down by another 10,000.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah,
no problem with that.
She most of people watch her are cis men who've got a thing for, shall we say, in the most crude way, chicks with dicks.
Well, again, you can say that. I couldn't possibly.
All right, Francis Carter.
Yes. You got my reference.
Well, it's lovely to have had a chat with you. We must do this again sometime.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
I mean, is there anything you want to ask me? No one ever seems to want to ask me anything.
Well, I think it's because our conversation just kind of drifted from topic to topic to topic, and so, at this point, no, I think because we're getting on, yeah, like, is it? Oh my gosh, almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, I just noticed, so I thought we should end it here because you've probably got papers to mark and stuff. So.
Oh no, I'm just a civil servant these days. I deal with data stuff and archiving and stuff.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is KWINTE.
And I don't think she follows me, by the way. Naughty girl.
I'll tag me into something and I'll sort that out. Sorry, normally when I end up following people, it's not from like people who follow me. I usually find someone who's made a sarcastic comment in my feed, and if it sounded kind of sarky enough, so my who I follow is kind of weirdly acquired.
Right.
And I just made a video too. Sargon is so full of crap that that Mitch McConnell, who of course basically acquitted Trump, can debunk him, or basically what I noticed was in a video that Sargon made, Mitch McConnell actually addressed all his points. So I just put those two together in a video and added some bonsai.
Sorry, a couple of things before we go. A couple of points in chat. Yeah, I forgot to explain why Black Christmas was censored here. It's really stupid thing now, right? It's because at the beginning of the film, there's a nuisance phone call, and you can just hear them go cunt over and over again, and that was cut out the original release here. Seems so prudish now.
Yeah.
And I mean this was after The Exorcist was released. Someone just said Essence of Thought also has a good video dismantling Blair White. Yeah, Essence of Thought. I do like the stuff they put out. They're certainly a lot more sort of earnest and analytical than myself. I'm just very bombastic. I'll admit that. That's my style. I'm very punk rock, and I'm not going to fucking change. Anyways, please do go and give Kristi a follow, and please do go and subscribe to her YouTube channel. It's been great to have you on the show. Thanks for
your support of the Happy Hour too.
Yeah, it's well, as I said, we're both fighting against fascism, so we should help one another. All right, folks. Well, that's it for tonight. I will be back at 6:00 tomorrow, reacting to whatever news stories and LGBTQ related stories there are. Obviously, we'll have more to say about Rush Limbaugh, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, again and again and again. In the meantime, stay safe and peace out.